Suso, tira Alessio, Suso, tira, perché non tiriamo? Ma perché non tiriamo? Gol! Alessio Romagnoli, goal!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host Ollie Fisher in slightly unfamiliar surroundings. I'm in my bedroom this week, but whatever, joined by Anthony Torgrud.
Yeah, what's up guys? In very familiar surroundings. I'm in my bedroom as well, but I'm always in here, so I'm glad to be back. As you can tell, we don't have Madison with us. Surprisingly, this is my fault, not his. I had something I got to do at our normal recording time, student early, and he's at work, but no one really cares about that. Anyways, moving on.
The poor guy always gets hounded when he has to miss an episode, but yeah, Maddie's okay, don't worry everybody. Everything's on fire at the club at the moment, I think it would be fair to say. The Rangnick stuff's still going on in the background, but it's like almost a side fire to what's gone on. I suppose it's kind of linked, basically. But Paolo Maldini had some stuff to say, which was quite funny, in my opinion. And of course, weird. I should have got it up before we started this, but I've got it up now. I've got the quotes. I'll read them out for people who haven't heard them yet in full. So he gave this interview to Answer, which is interesting because a lot of the interviews so far have been done in just like normal newspapers, but Answer are regarded as, you know, a very good source, really. It was interesting that he chose to do it with these guys. Anyway, he said, having never talked to Rangnick, I don't understand on what basis his statements are based. Also because I've never been told anything by the owners. Some considerations, in my opinion, however, must be made. The German coach, in fact, speaking of a role with full managerial powers, both in the sporting and technical areas, invades areas where professionals work with regular contracts. So I would have some advice for him. Before learning Italian, he should review the general concepts of respect, as there are colleagues who, despite the many difficulties of this moment, are trying to finish the season in a very professional way, putting the good of Milan to their professional pride. Wow. Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, it's well, initially it seemed like he was pulling a Boban and committing career suicide, but we later find out that this was sanctioned by Milan. So, I mean, that adds a whole nother twist to it. But the statements in itself are interesting, especially the whole part about respect. I mean, he doesn't know Rangnick. Everyone has said he's a good guy, and it's just he's upset essentially because he's going to be coming for his job. You know, he's coming for all the jobs, which really makes a lot of sense for a team like Milan who's trying to cut the books. You know, if you could hire one person to replace three, why wouldn't you? It makes perfect sense. You know, let's save money there. But yeah, it's interesting. It sounds more emotional than anything, but I can't help but feel for him. You know, I mean, it's a guy who's dedicated his life to this club, who has continually turned down offers to be at the club until he felt we're comfortable in the right direction, and now essentially, you know, one full season in, he's out the door for a foreign guy, and I could see why that would upset him, but it is what it is. I mean, it's business.
It's interesting because Maldini had been offered to, as you said, had offers to come back to the club under various ownerships before. But he'd always rejected them because he said that when he came back, he wanted it to feel right and like he could make a difference. And as you say, it looks like he's set to lose his powers as technical director after a year. You know, he was only officially appointed in that particular role last summer. The whole build up to it's been very messy, I would say. Obviously, the reports started a while ago. Like last year, there was talk of Rangnick coming and arriving at the club. We're all aware of that. And then Boban gave his interview saying that it was all basically agreed in December. That cost him his job, and that's with very good reason. You know, we know that Boban is allegedly taking the club to some kind of employment tribunal about that because he thinks he's been unfairly dismissed, but the club obviously thought they had grounds to dismiss him. And then Maldini has twice now spoken out against Rangnick, first of all saying that he doesn't think that he's the right profile for Milan, didn't elaborate on that, he just said he didn't think he's the right guy, which I didn't like to begin with. I don't think you can question a man's ability, be it as a head coach or as a sporting director or whatever, when you've not even been in the role a year yourself. You know, I don't think he's in any position to make that call. And then, of course, he's come out and done this, and he accuses Rangnick of a lack of respect when, if anything, first of all, it's not Rangnick's position to be 100% respectful. He's not a Milan employee yet, but I'd say he's been very respectful. He's been asked repeatedly about reaching an agreement in December, and he's always said, no, I never reached an agreement in December. In my opinion, he could have said then we had talks, etc. But he didn't, out of respect for Red Bull, who are obviously his current employers. Then he's given a little bit away in his last 2 interviews and said, yes, there's been contacts, but coronavirus has slowed things down. So once again, neither confirming nor denying, which would be destabilising for both the club and for Red Bull, which is where, again, he still has a contract until 2021. And now we're in a situation where Maldini perceives Rangnick to be the disrespectful one because he outlined in a general sense what he would like for his next role, just saying that the way I like to operate is to have power over various things. He just said that's the way it is. That's the way that I operate. I don't even think he was specifically referring to Milan or a job at Milan in that sense. He just said this is the way that I like to do things. And yeah, now it's a bit of a mess because I will admit that I had a go at Maldini publicly, tweeted a couple of things saying that he's showing his inexperience like Boban as a director because the impetus, the responsibility is fully on Maldini to be completely to behave with like decorum in the media. I saw someone put it, which I think is the right way of putting it. Twice now he's come out and once accused Rangnick of being disrespectful when he hasn't, and then the other time he questioned his credentials for the job, having only had it for a few months himself. So it's a difficult one because now it's left us with a situation where we were thinking, okay, Maldini might go down the Boban route here and get sacked for what he said. But that isn't the case because it turns out the club knew full well what he was going to say and approved it. And now it's come out from various reliable sources that Rangnick has actually spoken to Gazidis and apologised for the interview which he gave, which seems like an interesting one. It just feels like we're in some kind of sitcom or like a drama, like a really bad drama.
Yeah, it's poorly written, that's for sure. It's strange. And just to track back a little bit here, you touched on Maldini being in the wrong for even questioning Rangnick's ability when he's only been in the role for a year. Rangnick is asking for a role that he's held for a while, for an entire organization, overseeing multiple clubs. I mean, Rangnick is far more qualified to take over this position than Maldini ever was. Maldini was given his position based off his playing ability, which, I mean, if you apply for the job of director at a company that you were a customer service person, you're not going to get it. So just because he was really good at it, he didn't, I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, but he didn't have the qualifications for it. So it is interesting to see him call him out. It is what it is. I mean, we know he's had outbursts before. We look at his relationship with the Curva Sud before his retirement. It should be no surprise that he's willing to speak out on what he believes in. And that's perfectly fine. Everyone has the ability to do that, especially when the club authorizes it. That's the weirdest part to me. So it sounds like Rangnick wasn't authorized and he doesn't need Milan's authorization to get that interview because he's not hired by us. But then he went out of his way to apologize for it, which means he feels he was in the wrong. So I wonder what the relation's like there now. I mean, I'm just so confused on where we're at with this. It sounds like he's coming, but why is there this strange turmoil? It doesn't make sense.
So for me, I don't know how you view it, and I don't know how other people view it, but for me, the fact that Rangnick has apologised, if that's true, is probably the strongest indication so far that he's coming, because he wants to make... I don't think that his interview, any of the interviews that he's given have been anything but above board,
Well, and they've all been very brief, too. I mean, if anything, they're more statements than interviews. It's nothing ground-shattering.
No, there was nothing ground-shattering, and he admitted to contacts, which is fair. I think some people were saying there's a double standard in criticising Maldini because they say if you think Maldini should have kept his mouth shut, then so should Rangnick. I'm not here to fight Rangnick's corner. I'm here to hold someone accountable who is currently employed by our football club. And I think first of all, Rangnick. I think people who were in that camp expected him to lie, sort of expected him to say, no, I've never had any contacts. And then it's like, that's not a particularly great foundation to go off the fact that he's lying about whether he's joining us or not. But then, you look at the Maldini side of things, and for me, justification is obviously number one, that he cares a lot about the club, and he's willing to defend them even in the media, as he has done on multiple occasions. That's great. I love Maldini. I always will. Nothing will ever stop my appreciation of what he's done for the club over his coming up to 30 odd years now, and his family. It extends beyond him. But in doing something that he thought was for the benefit and out of love for the club, it's had the adverse effect. It's brought yet more negative media attention onto us. It's created yet more uncertainty. I just wonder what the players are thinking through all this, reading this stuff in the papers. And I mean, I said to you guys privately, you settle things like this behind closed doors as professional executives. You don't settle it on the front page of newspapers, because it never ends well. It just never ends well.
Well, like you said, I mean, what is the play? If it was authorized by the club, what was the end goal? Rangnick could say whatever the hell he wants, and Milan could just not respond, and then life continues as normal. But now it's almost like the only thing that makes sense was that Maldini went rogue and gave the salty interview, and then the club, to stop turmoil, said, no, we approved it, when they really didn't, and then they are handling that behind closed doors. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of, and that's borderline conspiracy theory. It just, nothing makes sense. I don't get why we would authorize it if our new guy is Rangnick and we need to support him. We need to support him now and just keep our mouths shut, not say, oh yeah, we authorized our current director, who we're about to sack, for this new guy to talk shit about the new guy because we want the fans to dislike him early. Like, I don't. It just.
I have my own theory. I have a theory, and it is just a theory. There are so many different, as you say, theories that you can have, that some of them do borderline on conspiracy. But I have a theory that perhaps there was some kind of pre-agreement, not a formal agreement signed, which involved some kind of non-disclosure agreement, meaning that Rangnick wasn't allowed to basically mention our name in the media, hence the denials up until this point. And they thought that his interview, where he confirmed contacts with us, and then went on to outline the kind of roles and responsibilities he'd want, regardless of whether that was attached to the comment about us or not, was probably just pushing on a breach of that non-disclosure. That's just my theory, but, he's apologised. I'd like to know what for. I'd like to know what he thought that he's owned up to and said was wrong, or whether he is literally just like, sorry, let's not have any bad blood here.
Or maybe it is, sorry, I breached that NDA, and he's trying to cover his ass now, It's
interesting because the day after that this all came out, the club apparently released some kind of line from a source inside, confirming that there have been talks, but there's been no agreement. Again, that's always been their consistent line on things. So that to me just suggests that everything's probably in place. There might have been some pre-agreement with an NDA, and then everything's still to be formally, properly handwritten signatures when all of this is over and he can actually travel to Italy.
When was the regular season supposed to? I guess it would be. We were going to that last game, so that was the regular season was going to end on the 20th of May, 24th, something like that, 25th.
Yeah,
around there. So maybe they did have this NDA signed in December to lead until the end of the season, and then he was allowed to, because the plan would to have him signed and announce it. So maybe that time frame of the NDA has expired, and that's kind of why he spoke up and then apologized, because obviously that wasn't breaching anything, but it could be borderline like, hey, sorry, and just because of Corona, it's just a little weird right now. I don't know. I mean, there's so many maybes, but none of them are like solid. Concrete. This is it, like it's weird. Everything's weird.
Yeah, I would really, really like to know what went on inside the offices of the club during that sort of 48-hour period where his interview came out. Whether it's true that Gazidis and Maldini were both very angry, whether it was Gazidis and those higher up that were angry and they sent Maldini out as the mouthpiece for the club and said, you do this interview. Or whether Maldini said, I want to do this interview, here's what I'm going to say. And they said, yeah, do it, because we need to apply a bit of pressure and get him to shut his mouth. There's so many different narratives that but none of them seem to be, like you say, foolproof. None of them seem to.
It could even be Maldini wanting to, kind of lay the groundwork for him staying next season with Rangnick. Him saying, "Look, I'm the director now. You could come in as the coach and work with me, but I'm the director." Maybe it's something like that too.
Interesting that there's been a few reports that have come out in the past couple of weeks. Sort of, I would say half and half. Half of them are saying Maldini's destined to leave, but then there's also some saying that Maldini could stay and sort of help bridge into the new revolution. I guess they're calling it, aren't they? I find that difficult because he's going to bring so many of his own staff and stuff like that. But
I saw the budget for hiring staff was going to be higher than the budget for bringing in players this summer, which I kind of like. It keeps order, and we see how successful Red Bull is. We see how unsuccessful Milan is. Why not invest in the Red Bull staff? If we could get the same guys, just poach them completely, become RB Milan, so be it. I mean, I think it's worth it. I think that's the right move.
Yeah, we've been through so many of the same sort of revolutions where we get an average Italian coach in, we buy players that we think are going to push us in the right direction, and it never really does. I think it is time to try something different. I'm going to be fully behind it until we have a reason not to be. I think people are going to have to be patient, definitely. But I think if Rangnick is taking on the project, he either needs guarantees that he's going to get the money and the time to do what he wants, or he's doing it because he sees something here worth building on, if you know what I mean. He probably looks at our core of young players, and we are one of the youngest teams in the league, and says, I can do something with that. He's rejected plenty of projects in the past, He's supposedly rejected a fair few big clubs in the past, so I still think it would be a major scalp. And I still think it's a compatible project for us as well, if that's the way that we're going to go about doing things. But I said this with the Gianpaolo thing and with the 4-3-1-2 and all that. If we're gonna do it, then we need to fully buy into it.
Yeah,
we need to fully be behind this guy. We need to give him everything that he wants. And I liked the fact that he supposedly laid down 5 demands, saying that he wants complete tactical control. He wants a big budget available for staff. Wants budget available to bring in a few players in the summer window and kick everything off. Wants to instill his own identity and all that stuff. I like it because it's, for once, somebody saying, look, this is my blueprint, this is what I think is going to work. It's up to you whether you want to back me with it or not. It's a bit like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, as they would call it over here, where it's like, this is what I need.
It seems like historically, at least recently, with Gianpaolo, Pioli, Gattuso, whoever came before, I can't remember. We've had so many coaches. Yeah, Montella. It's almost been like the coach said, this is what I'd like. And the club said, can you do it with what we got? And they said, I'll give it a whirl. And then they just roll with it. Whereas now it's, this is what I want. Give it to me, or I'm saying no. And that's going to work. I mean, that's how projects are laid out. You start with the man. Then you go with his demands, and then you get the players. I mean, you hear it so many times, like when Pep goes to a club, everyone's like, oh, well, Pep's not a great manager. He just buys the best players. Like, he has a game plan that's slightly unique at every club he goes to. And yes, he has unique players that he demands, but they fit his system, and then he wins championships. If we got a guy, and I'm not saying Rangnick is on Pep's level. He might be in the future, but right now that'd be a pretty bold statement. But if he's got a plan and he's forcing us to follow it, we're gonna do better than saying, here's what Gianpaolo wants, here's what we got, can you turn Suso into a trequartista? It's not stuff like that. We're gonna get players that he wants, and if that's the way we go, I think we're gonna be more successful. I think it's a good move. I think it's weird that he even gave that interview, though. I'm going all over the place. I think it's weird he gave that interview when the Bundesliga starts up Saturday and Leipzig is playing. Think that. But
well, it's interesting. Did you see the thing that's come out today in Germany? Apparently, they've already replaced him. They've hired that Oliver Mintzlaff guy as the new head of global sport for Red Bull, which isn't the exact same title, but like everywhere in Germany is saying that it's basically. And him and Mintzlaff never got on at Leipzig, which is why Rangnick moved to a more general role within Red Bull. Apparently, they created him a new role head of football development or something, so he would stay within the company. And then Christian Falk, fair play, he had a good exchange with us on Twitter.
Yeah.
But he said that the role of head of football development didn't exist before Rangnick, and it probably won't after. So now all of a sudden they've got a new head of global sports/football, which is a slightly different title, but a similar bloke who's occupying it. It seems to me like they're getting ready for something.
Well, even the title implies a very similar role to what Rangnick's title was. I mean, what is it? World Football Development?
Rangnick is head of football development for Red Bull, and then Mintslav is head of global sport for Red Bull. But they only have football. Unless he's doing like the Red Bull air races.
I mean, it's the same thing, like it's, So that makes perfect sense. Hire him under a new title to do the same job while keeping Rangnick on until shit can be announced, because I'm sure there's going to be some sort of severance that either Red Bull's going to have to or that we'll have to pay to Red Bull to get him, So
he did say, Falk, that wouldn't be an issue.
And I'm sure it wouldn't.
They would probably, because of his work for them,
Oh, they would just release him?
Yeah, and he stepped up to be head coach of Leipzig when he didn't want to be. You know, he wanted to stay as sporting director, but he decided to go back to being a head coach. And so I think he doesn't owe them anything, let's put it that way. And he'll go with their best wishes, which would be good. But I don't know what his contract would be worth. I don't know what Red Bull are paying him. Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a media fire, I guess. I really think that nothing is going to be formally announced until this season comes to some sort of conclusion, which is frustrating because that could potentially be 2-3 months' time.
It could be August. We might not even really have a summer, It might just... I'm so confused on it. So what's the rumor date? The 13th or the 15th of June?
13th of June.
The 13th of June for a rumored restart. I mean, are we going to have transfer window in July and August, but they can't play because it's the previous season still? I mean, that doesn't make sense.
No.
Are we going to go straight into preseason as soon as the season ends? I mean, are we just going to try and rush 3-4 games a week until it's done and finish late June or early July?
Yeah, I really don't know. They've just found a date. They've just found a date, and I don't think they know the timeline themselves yet. And I think whatever the solution is, because of the way transfer windows work, obviously it needs to be kind of a Europe-wide one. I wouldn't be surprised if they delayed the transfer window. And I've seen that about it running for like 3 months up until the Christmas break or something like that. But
and
that would just throw everything.
But if they could do that, if they do like October, November, December, and then not have January, I don't know. That gives coaches basically all that they need to see for those January moves, plus all the changes they want anyways, So I don't know. It's interesting.
It's just not an easy fix, I've thought about various theories in my head as to how they could get everything done.
Yeah. I'm glad it's not my job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Say that every time. It's similar problem all over you. I mean, at least Bundesliga is they've given a model to follow in terms of starting stuff back up and what scheduling might work and how long we need in training before we can get everything back underway. And it's clearly not as long as people thought. I think they've been back in for 3 weeks or something, and they're getting ready to play games again on Saturday. So perhaps this whole footballers needing at least a month and all that stuff is perhaps not so true, but we'll see.
So let's talk about that, though. Are you picking a Bundesliga team? Are you going with Hertha?
I'm going to be Schalke.
Really?
Because obviously Huddersfield's old manager David Wagner's there, and they've tweeted us. They tweeted like saying, proud to welcome all the Huddersfield fans on board and stuff. So I'm going to go with them. But
that's fair.
Historically speaking, I would probably go for Hertha. I'll look out for both of them.
I'm going to go with Leipzig. I'm going to support them just for Rangnick. Yeah, I know it's a little bandwagon-y. I don't know where they're at. I think they're third, like 5 points off. I really don't remember.
I can't wait until he leaves and they give an interview slagging him off and you're there with your Leipzig shirt on in the next episode.
You know what? I'll buy one as soon as we're done recording and I'll wear it when we record next week.
Seriously?
Fuck it. Yes. I haven't spent any money this quarantine, dude. I'm rich right now.
Have they got an American player?
Doing well. So I don't know. I don't even know who's on the team, bro.
Werner's probably not a great bet.
That's a terrible.
You get Forsberg, then Isaac will get a boner.
Yeah, and he's questionable. We don't want that.
I like that Upamecano might stay, and he's been linked with Milan, and he said that he was flattered to be linked with us. That's a good one.
I could
Amadou
get Ethan
Haidara, I like
Ampadu.
him.
I liked
Oh,
Ampadu.
yeah.
Yeah, he was a Chelsea boy,
I was
right?
only on loan though, isn't
Fuck it.
he? And he
I
Welsh
don't
as
know.
well.
I'm looking right now. Kevin Campbell. I do like Kevin Campbell.
Oh shit, yeah, I forgot about him.
Christian
I
Kunku.
like
I like him.
that.
Oh, they got Tyler Adams, a USA guy. I don't know if he's any good. Let's
I like
see.
that Sabitzer. He's good.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
the one
yeah.
who ripped Tottenham apart though.
They got Patrick Schick. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but he's on loan, and apparently they can't pay the money to sign him permanently. But it's interesting because, funny you should mention that. I was going to write a feature about like alternative targets to Luka Jovic that we could go for, and Schick was one of them because he's clearly like someone that Rangnick likes, and he is a hard-working forward, and he was good in Serie A when he was good.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, he
When he was
mint
good,
Sampdoria,
that's that was such a weird can't even talk. Weird saga because, like you said, he was great at Sampdoria, and then he signed for Juve but failed a medical, and then went to Inter and failed, and then went to Roma in the same window or something, right? I
He,
think.
yeah, he definitely failed a Juve medical and then went to Roma. I can't remember the Inter thing. I think there was a thing about him.
Was it Napoli? I could have sworn there were two almost medicals that just didn't happen.
And then Roma passed him through, and he was rubbish for them.
Yeah,
Funny.
just
but they have got
medical.
like, you know.
Oh yeah.
Funny that Roma just probably didn't need a striker. So yeah, everything's fun. Everything's great. Trying to think of any other transfer links that there's been. Really, there's been. Yeah, I can't remember if we talked about Denzel Dumfries. He's the one who I kept mentioning as like our ideal target.
Yeah, he'd be a great right back for us. That would be perfect. We could get rid of both Calabria and Conte, to be honest, but realistically, just Calabria for the capital gains.
I keep seeing, like, in every report that I write about Dumfries, there's always the paragraph like, and Milan, of course, have Ricardo Rodriguez, who's on loan at PSV, and Milan want to insert him in as part of the deal. And I'm like, can you imagine if we swap them two? It'd just be an absolute no-brainer. Great way to start the summer.
How much are they asking for Dumfries?
15 mil.
And what is the option on Rodriguez?
I don't think there is one. That's
okay.
Why.
I'd value him around 8 then. If we could give him both, like just throw him Conte and Rodriguez and pay nothing, that would be perfect. Yeah, like, here's your fullbacks. We don't need them. Give us yours. Yeah. There was another guy. Who was it? I'll pull up the site. Emerson.
Emerson de Souza. I don't really know much about him. I don't watch as much La Liga as I should because, like, on my TV now, with our provider, I've got a specific La Liga channel. But of course, we only got it just as the lockdown started and everything.
Yeah.
We were linked with someone interesting, and I've completely forgotten who they are now, which is dreadful. Oh, the Szoboszlai stuff's still going. Apparently, we're in talks with his agent.
Yeah.
And I like this one because, again, Red Bull, he's already in the network, so he's clearly a player that Rangnick likes. And I just read the report, and the teams that we're up against are Lazio, who have in the past got their recruitment right. You know, in particular under Elitare, their recruitment's been spot on if you look at the players that they've brought in. The likes of Luis Alberto, Joaquin Correa, obviously bringing Immobile back, so that's reassuring. And then the other teams interested are Liverpool, Dortmund and Leipzig. It's like, right, we must be doing something right to be after this guy. So, yeah, that's a good one. I like the idea of signing him.
The other one I saw was a Castrovilli-Paqueta swap.
Love that. Do it. Do it. Castrovilli, I remember... I didn't know who the guy was, and perhaps that's a bit bad, but I think he only broke through early this season, really. But I just remember being absolutely, I don't know what the word would be, enchanted by him when he played at San Siro earlier. I was just like, who is this guy? You know, and then I looked him up, and it's like, he's 23, and I've only just heard of him. You know, he looked better than Chiesa. And he just played in that hole, and he scored a great goal against us. And then afterwards, come out and said, "I'm a massive Milan fan. I'm sorry I celebrated." And I'm like, "Mate, no need to apologise."
I also didn't know who he was, and got called out for it during a Periscope I did for the SempreMilan account. Someone asked me, I can't remember who it was. I think his @ was Dan Maldini, And he kept asking me in the comments, what are your thoughts on Castrovilli? And I didn't know who he was. So I
Oh,
kept ignoring it. And then at the end, I was like, I don't know who it is. Sorry. So after that, I looked him up and I was like, wow, this kid's pretty solid. So
he does good. I mean,
down.
we're gonna. So much of our recruitment, I think, is going to be based on the system that we play. And Rangnick likes to apparently play a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-2-2 with like two players, more central, but slightly further forward of the midfielders. Those of you who play FIFA will know what a 4-2-2-2 is. It's like playing with two attacking midfielders and two defensive midfielders. So Castrovilli wouldn't fit into a 4-4-2 in my opinion, because he can't play as a wide midfielder and he's probably not good enough defensively to play in the midfield too. But the other one, yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
get him in there. That'd be great. Szoboszlai and Castrovilli as the two attacking midfielders would be absolutely fantastic in my opinion. And then it gives license for Rebic to push a little bit further up the pitch, play as a support striker, and then we get someone in like Jovic. I wrote a feature today. I've been scraping the barrel for feature ideas, but I thought this one was like, kind of an interesting
Perry thing.
Yeah, kind of an interesting concept. The idea that obviously we're going down a German theme in terms of the model of club and the way that we want to play and everything, but that we could end up with a Portuguese-speaking spine. And that is, we signed Leao and Paqueta, and I think it'd be fair to say they've been flops up until this point, but those are exactly the kind of players that Rangnick will probably want to work with and get the most out of. So it's in Elliot's best interest to protect their investment and give these guys a go. And you think Paqueta could play in that attacking midfield role. He's direct. He gets stuck in. We've seen his pressing game under Pioli has improved a lot. And then Leao, could play in the front too, or could play as the left-sided attacking midfielder, whatever he sees best. But he's energetic, again, direct, not afraid to take a man on, not afraid to shoot. Just an interesting one. And then players like Duarte, who are versatile, can play right back or centre back. We've seen that he just like runs to the ball and he is very tenacious as a centre back, but good with the ball at his feet. Could probably be useful. Not saying he'd be a starter, but he's another Brazilian player to throw in there. And then we keep getting linked with like Florentino Luis, who of course is Portuguese, would be a good defensive midfielder in my opinion. Someone more reliable to stick next to Benacer would be great, and he fits the mold perfectly of someone who's just an absolute hound when they're
we could also call back Andre Silva to partner up with Leao.
I mean, I'm not against it, Silva's probably quite a lot like Timo Werner in his style. He's not going to cover the most distance on the pitch at all, but he gets himself into dangerous situations and he gets involved in link-up play, and that's what he thrives in. So who knows? But then again, if that would prevent us getting Rebic in any way, then
yeah,
I'd still go for Rebic, because Rebic is the one that Rangnick has always wanted.
Yeah, it makes sense to keep him. Do we have questions or?
Yeah, let's do some cues. I got one on DM, which I will read out. This one comes from Jojo Slay 20. Which player in the Primavera team do you think could join the first team under Rangnick? Now, this is an interesting one because we've spoken about like breakout Primavera stars, but the one that could potentially make the biggest impact under Rangnick and his style of play, I feel like a cop out for saying it, but I would say Brescianini again.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I just think, again, perfect holding midfielder. Could even play a little bit forward, but he just seems to be the one. He's the captain, so he knows all about leadership and taking control of games. And yeah, he'd be a perfect DM. But
yeah,
it
just makes sense. I mean, it's a position that we already kind of lack in. Like, obviously, we got Benacer, but we know we need that extra midfielder anyway. So it makes sense if Randy could turn him into a starter level player, then why not? Because we already have strikers, and who else is? There's one other big Primavera player that I don't think we necessarily need right now.
Obviously, there's Daniel Maldini. I don't know if you count him as senior yet. I suppose he could play as an attacking midfielder, support striker, but I don't think Rangnick could bet heavily on him. There's Luan Capani.
Right. We don't need a striker.
And Colombo, and then there's I'm missing one. We've got Pobega, who's out on loan.
Pobega, that's what I was thinking. Yeah,
he might be worth a look, I suppose. I just think if we're going to be youth led, there's no point going out and signing players that perhaps aren't that much above the level of some of the Primavera players,
Right.
Because young talent doesn't come cheap now, especially when you're poaching it from.
Yeah, well, you pay for potential nowadays, and
I just see
that's
like
costly.
I've seen us linked with some some Argentine striker today, who plays for Talleres, and I think he's scored 9 goals this season, which, don't get me wrong, he's good. He's an Argentina under-23 international, but it's like, oh, the asking price is 20 million euros, and I think that could be so much better spent. That for that money, if he's only ever going to be like a backup striker, it'd be better to promote Luan Capani or someone like that and give them, or give Daniel Maldini a better go, and to use that to strengthen the spine of the team. I think if that 80 million budget's true, that's good to work with, because there'd be the money from sales to add to that.
Yeah.
And obviously the wage budget to manoeuvre with the departures of hopefully Pepe Reina, but Belia Bonaventura. So yeah, there's definitely a slate there to work from. I'll go to other questions now. I didn't have it loaded up.
Did your
so this
room
is a
go
good
dark?
one. Yeah, so I'm doing it, and like the sun has moved around.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just noticed, like, all of a sudden he's just a floating head.
Yeah, it's just the sunset, mate, unfortunately. It's unfamiliar surrounds for me, this, but anyway. This one comes from Kyle Mendonca, or Mendonça, probably. I butcher these names, I'm so sorry. Ivan Gazidis is known for buying youth, and I assume he means Rangnick is known for buying youth and improving them to be sold on for a profit later. Does this hamper Milan's chances of winning a title? We could probably do an episode on this alone.
Yeah,
about whether it's the right strategy.
I don't even think that that's necessarily 100% true. I mean, you look at the young stars that he sold, they're usually when they force their way out. I mean, I don't count Salzburg just because everyone, when they're going to outgrow the Austrian league, so I don't count that. But you look at Leipzig, they sold like Sadio Mane, but he was kind of forced some way out, or maybe he wasn't. I think that might have been like one of the few. But most of the big name players that he sold were forcing their way out. And that's a lot rarer at a club like Milan, that's no slight to the other clubs. It's just Milan has a much bigger name value to it than any of the Red Bull clubs do, even though they may be better teams at the moment. But so I don't know if that's even really his strategy. It might be something that Gazidis is looking at as, okay, worst case scenario, we sign some young guns and we could sell them for a profit later and get the books balanced. But I think that's more of a myth than a reality, that's what Rangnick likes to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. You've also got to remember that the Red Bull football network operates in a completely different way to the way that Milan operate, in the sense of a standalone club. Because Red Bull Salzburg are essentially a feeder club for RB Leipzig, and RB Leipzig tend to develop players into literally top-level world-class players, like they've done with Werner, they've done with Naby Keita, potentially like we're going to see with Upamecano, a couple of other players that they've got there. They develop those on and they sell them on for big money, but they do it because RB Leipzig is not an end goal. They're not a destination. They're not a final destination, and that's unfortunately just the way it is. Whereas I think for us, for some players, it will be an end destination if we can get things right. The likes of Donnarumma, Tonali, Castrovilli, all these players that have come out and spoken about their willingness to join us. I think they would hang around for the foreseeable future if we got things right.
Right, and that's the big if, is it's an end goal if we start winning again. And if we don't, they might stay longer than normal, but that's when they're going to leave. If they're progressing, but yet we're still not getting results somehow, then they might leave. But if we start winning,
what objection would we have to that?
Exactly.
I mean, at this then left.
Exactly. If Romagnoli and Donnarumma said, "Look, I need to win titles to establish myself in my career," who are we to say no? They've given everything to this club. So I don't think it's an issue. If we could get these great starlets in and develop them the way that Rangnick wants to, that he foresees them doing, then we're going to start winning, and then we're an end goal. The only clubs that people go to after Milan that would be an improvement is like a Real Madrid or a Barcelona at this point. Maybe PSG even, and even that's kind of scratching the surface a little bit. That's not quite, but for the most part, players aren't leaving Milan.
And how many times have we said that, like, or certainly I've said that when things are good at Milan, there is no better place to play in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And every
player says that.
has said that. Ibrahimovic said it's the best club that he's ever been at. There's so many players that have said that it's just a feeling like no other, really. So yeah, it's just about getting there. But in the short term, I think it's very much about the balance sheets, 100%. Mm-hmm. It's getting rid of dead weight salaries, getting rid of old players that have no resale value, and signing young players that basically just get stonks on the up. Stonks. This is a really good question. I'm half tempted to save this for next week. I'll read it out and let me know if you want me to save it, because this could actually be just like our main topic for next week if nothing else happens. But Ludwig Spazio asks, build next season's starting 11, but you can only have 3 new players out of the ones that we've already been linked with. Should we save that? I kind of want to hear Maddie's.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I want Maddie in on that, and I want time to think about it, because that's a fantastic question. So shout out to you, and we'll do it next week.
I like interesting stuff like that, because I'm like, 3, that's easy. And then I'm like, oh, no, because we need like at least 5,
We need 11 new players, yeah.
Yeah. So Nuraziz Octavio One always asks great questions. Some news said that Donnarumma's contract will include a clause to maybe appoint him as a future skipper. What do you think about the prospect of Donnarumma being captain?
I said halfway through this half season that we actually got that he is better captain material than Romagnoli. And that's not a knock to Romagnoli. It's just you see the way Donnarumma yells at his defense. He commands the pitch. You saw him on Ibrahimovic's first game back that we were lining up for a corner. Donnarumma walked up to Zlatan and just moved him. No one does that to Zlatan. And even Zlatan was like, all right, I respect that.
He's the only player taller than him.
Yeah, there's that too. And he's doing that at 20, 21 years old. I mean, he's been at the club since he was 16. He's been starting for us almost 6 seasons now. And he's a youngster. He's got the mentality, though. He's been through the shit with the fans, with the whole Donnarumma saga, with Mino Raiola. He's been through all these ownerships, all these coaches. I mean, if anyone knows the current affairs of the club and how it needs to change, it's Donnarumma. If he wants to be captain, then the whole organization needs to bow down and kiss his feet and say, yes, sir, because he's earned it.
I totally agree with everything that you've just said. I just don't know how I feel about stripping Romagnoli of the captaincy. I think that's a difficult one. That's a difficult one. Mm-hmm. Whether you appoint them
vice captains, just alternate games.
I don't. Well, you can't do that. I wonder how much actually really matters with captaincy in football nowadays. You can have leaders on the pitch that don't wear the armband. Ibrahimovic being the prime example.
Well, I think there's bonuses for being the captain, isn't there?
Possibly, yeah. Possibly. And also it does matter in terms of I was the captain of Milan.
Right.
I think you instantly go into the club's Hall of Fame if you're a captain for over a certain amount of games. So
I mean, that makes sense. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. So I'm totally for it. If Romagnoli was all right with it, then 100%. But I just don't see that being a very comfortable discussion to have, especially when Romagnoli could say, "Well, I've stuck with you through everything.
Right.
I've been here through it all. I barely ever miss a game. I'm a vocal leader," because I do Google getting images of Romagnoli, and all of them, he's got his arm up pointing at something. It's always like that. And that makes me think, is he actually a vocal leader? And we just don't realise it. We don't appreciate it. I think Rangnick will probably have a big say in it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It'd be interesting to look back at the history of who he's made captain as a head coach, whether it's just naturally been the oldest player, whether it's been the money of judges to be the best, or whether it... Because some head coaches don't like having a goalkeeper as captain. Some of them as well insist on having a defensive midfielder as captain because they're always in the middle of the pitch.
And that makes sense.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting. Be interesting.
I can tell you, I've never been a fan of strikers being the captain. I've always preferred
selfish, the most selfish position on the pitch.
Yeah. I've always been like you said, defensive mid, defender. I'm not against the idea of a goalkeeper, but I could see why. Obviously, their communication is not going to reach the strikers, So that
organization from set pieces is one of the most important parts of being a captain, I guess. But if you're well drilled anyway, you're well drilled.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't think you need to wear the armband to be a leader anymore. It's better to have a team full of leaders. I know the whole too many cooks spoil the broth and stuff, but we've seen adding a leader in Ibrahimovic has completely changed the mentality.
Well, and you could have a leader in each third of the field, in the defensive line.
I think that's important.
Exactly. You got Romagnoli, I'd say, is the leader right now in the defense. Obviously, he's the captain. And then you have
Cospelia in the midfield.
Yeah. No, I was going to say Benacer is probably right now the leader of the midfield. And then obviously Ibrahimovic leader up top. But there doesn't seem to be any disharmony between them. But
no,
I don't know.
No,
it's
I like it.
Vanity, I guess.
We'll see. I don't actually buy into the article that said it either. I think it was a Tuttosport one. I don't think Donnarumma would ever demand to be captain. Seems like a Raiola maybe thing.
Raiola might do it if the renewal that we're offering isn't much of a raise.
Unless it is actually worth money, like you say. But him getting the armband doesn't get Raiola more money. So I wouldn't see that as the two being linked. But unless it is just look, I've bent Milan over a table again and got them to give in to my demands. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Final question then comes from Mia Tojaman. It's at Mia_28. Why is the Minister of Sport, he's on about Spafadora, so opposed to the return of Syria? It's quite funny. He keeps coming. I don't know if you've been reading it, but he keeps coming out in all these interviews. Like when a news story comes out about Syria restarting at a particular date, he always comes out and says, "I don't think so. I don't think this is going to happen. We need to do so much stuff." And people are starting to lose patience now, saying that he doesn't actually like football at all.
He's just concerned, and I agree. I personally think the season should be canceled. I'm against the restart. As much as I would love to see him play, at this point, like, my emotions have gone past caring for the 1920 season. I'm looking ahead to the 2021. I mean, every podcast for the last month has been looking to the future. Rangnick, future transfers, how we're going to line up next season. Why are we going to go backwards? We're going to go backwards to start something just to end it and then immediately start preseason without any gap. And then we're going to fuck the Euros. We're going to ruin the winter transfer window going forward. I mean, there's just so many things that it ruins, but there's a lot of things that get ruined regardless. So I don't know. It's like pick your poison, but I'm against it. So I don't have any problem with him saying no.
Yeah, I'll end by just very simply saying that he's the Minister of Sport. Nothing can go wrong on his watch. So he's going to try and cover his own back in every way possible.
That's true.
That's just a simple way of saying it.
If they restart and every player in the league gets infected, then it's on him.
Exactly. That's it. It's his name that signs the documents. Yeah, that's it. Good episode, I would say.
That was good.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, everyone. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me. I forgot to say my Twitter at the start. That's all over the place this week. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher or at Kilpin Chronicle for some more explicit Milan-based rants. And I've been joined by Anthony Torgrud.
Yeah, it's been a good one. Had a lot of fun discussing everything today. Find me on Twitter at Torgrud45. I guess I don't have to hand it off to Maddie, so cool.
Yeah. And this is episode 99. So I will mention at this point, if you've made it this far, congratulations, because you get a little bit of insider knowledge. We will be announcing a giveaway. We will announce the giveaway on the 100th episode, obviously, what it is and the details on how to enter and everything like that. But yeah, just as a heads up, there will be a giveaway. So yeah, just thought I'd get that in a week early. And thank you if you've listened to any of the first 99 episodes. And from me as a floating head in the darkness in the middle of Leeds, thank you very much for listening, everybody, and we will see you in a week's time.
Tira Alessio, Suso, tira, perché non tiriamo? Ma perché non tiriamo? Gol! Alessio Romagnoli, gol! Alessio Romagnoli!